Think about the single most terrifying, emotionally paralyzing word in the entire modern financial dictionary. It is a word that destroys marriages, ruins physical health, causes severe depression, and keeps millions of hardworking people lying awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, staring blankly at the bedroom ceiling in absolute, suffocating panic. That word is debt. From the very moment you were old enough to understand the concept of money, society meticulously implanted two completely opposing, highly toxic, and mathematically devastating lies into your brain regarding debt. The first massive lie is aggressively pushed by multi-billion-dollar consumer corporations, massive advertising agencies, and predatory banking institutions. This lie tells you that taking on tens of thousands of dollars in high-interest debt to buy a shiny new car, the latest glass smartphone, or a luxury vacation you cannot afford is completely normal. They have socially conditioned you to believe that having a massive monthly car payment is simply the unavoidable standard cost of participating in modern society. They want you to believe that your self-worth is directly tied to the brand of the clothes you finance and the logo on the steering wheel of the car you are leasing. The second massive lie comes from the other extreme of the spectrum. It is aggressively pushed by traditional conservative financial gurus who scream from brightly lit stages that absolutely all debt is inherently evil, toxic, and immoral. These gurus tell you that the only possible way to achieve financial peace is to pay off every single penny you owe, live a life of extreme, painful frugality, eat nothing but rice and beans, and completely cut up your credit cards with a pair of scissors. They treat you like a completely financially illiterate toddler who is incapable of safely handling a sharp tool. Both of these dominant financial narratives are meticulously engineered to keep you poor, terrified, geographically trapped, and permanently locked inside the middle-class matrix. The ultimate, highly guarded, mind-blowing secret of the top 1% of the global elite is that they completely and utterly ignore both of these lies. The ultra-wealthy elite do not fear debt, and they certainly do not use it to buy depreciating consumer garbage to impress people they do not even like. They respect debt as the single most powerful, explosive, and wealth-generating financial weapon in the entire global economy. They understand that there are actually two entirely different financial universes operating concurrently at the exact same time. The brutal, unforgiving universe of bad debt, which is mathematically designed to extract your physical life force, and the highly guarded elite universe of good debt, which is specifically designed to build massive tax-free generational wealth using other people's money. In this massive video, I am going to violently rip the mask off the global credit industry. I am going to expose the ruthless internal machinery of how banks psychologically trap you, and exactly how the elite completely flip the script to use the bank's own money against them to build empires. And if you stick with me until the very absolute end of this video, I will give you the exact step-by-step actionable blueprint to completely transition your financial identity from a targeted bleeding consumer victim into an untouchable, highly leveraged investor. To truly understand the absolute terrifying magnitude of this financial weapon, we must first look deeply into the dark, hidden, psychological reality of bad debt. Bad debt is defined as any money you borrow to purchase an item that actively, aggressively loses its market value the exact second you buy it, while simultaneously charging you a high interest rate just for the privilege of holding it. When you walk into a brightly lit electronics store and decide to finance a massive $3,000 flat-screen television on a retail credit card with a 25% interest rate, you are not just making a bad purchase. You are stepping directly into a highly calculated psychological corporate slaughterhouse. The massive banking institution that issues that credit card does not view you as a respected human being or a valued customer. They view you purely as a highly predictable, mathematically guaranteed financial yield. Let us break down the brutal mathematics of the credit card minimum payment, which is arguably the most deceptive and destructive financial mechanism ever invented by the banking industry. When you receive your credit card statement, the bank happily highlights a tiny, affordable number called the minimum payment. Let us say you owe $5,000 and the minimum payment is only $100. Your uneducated consumer brain looks at that and thinks, $100 is easy, I can afford this lifestyle. But behind the scenes, the bank's amortization algorithm is actively working to financially enslave you. Because of the massive 25% compounding interest rate, almost all of that $100 payment goes directly toward paying the interest, while only a tiny fraction actually reduces the $5,000 principal balance. If you only make the minimum payment, it will mathematically take you over 20 years to pay off that single television, and you will end up paying the bank over $10,000 in pure interest. You are physically trading decades of your future human labor just to watch a television that will be obsolete and broken in 3 years. But the nightmare of bad debt goes much deeper than just the math. Think about the massive, hidden infrastructure of credit and collections that exists behind the heavily guarded doors of every major bank in the world. It is an incredibly efficient, cold, and calculated corporate machine. When the bank issues that high-interest credit card to you, they are relying on massive supercomputers and complex behavioral algorithms that already mathematically predict that a specific guaranteed percentage of the population will lose their jobs, experience a medical emergency, and fail to make their payments. They literally, intentionally build your eventual financial failure and human suffering into their quarterly profit models. They do not care about your financial well-being. The exact moment you miss that monthly payment, an entirely different, ruthless corporate machine violently wakes up. Your account is seamlessly transferred to a highly trained, incredibly aggressive collections department. The entire psychological framework of the modern collections industry is meticulously designed to pressure you, to leverage your deep personal shame, to cause you extreme emotional distress, and to forcefully extract whatever tiny drop of liquidity you have left in your checking account. You are no longer a struggling human. Will call your personal phone relentlessly, 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 relentlessly,
Will call your personal phone relentlessly. During dinner, they will attach massive, unjustified late fees and penalty rates to your ballooning balance. And they will completely, intentionally destroy your financial reputation by ruining your credit score. They do this deliberately to ensure that you are permanently locked out of the legitimate wealth building system. When your credit is destroyed, You cannot get a mortgage to buy an asset, and you are forced to rely on even more predatory payday loans, subprime auto lenders, and slumlord apartments just to survive. This is the ultimate terrifying, inescapable reality of bad debt. It's a heavy, rusty, incredibly common iron chain wrapped directly around your neck, actively dragging you deeper and deeper into the dark, freezing waters of the financial matrix.
Completely drown in a sea of minimum payments. Now, I want you to completely erase that terrifying, depressing image from your mind, take a massive, deep breath, and step directly through the looking glass into the completely inverted financial universe of the ultra-wealthy. If you are allowed to look at the private balance sheets of the richest real estate developers, the most successful private equity managers, and the most massive corporations on the planet, you will see something that absolutely terrifies the traditional financially uneducated middle-class worker. You will see millions and sometimes billions of dollars in massive, overwhelming debt. But these billionaires are not losing sleep at night. They are not stressed, and they are certainly not receiving terrifying, threatening phone calls from a collections department. Why? Because they have completely mastered the elite concept of good debt, universally known in high-level financial circles as leverage, or OPM, which stands for other people's money. Good debt is the magical, highly calculated, and beautifully engineered process of borrowing a massive amount of money from a banking institution at a low, fixed interest rate, and immediately deploying that exact same borrowed money to purchase a hard, appreciating asset that generates a predictable, recurring monthly cash flow that is significantly higher than the monthly cost of the debt itself. This is the absolute ultimate financial cheat code of capitalism. Let us break down this massive, reality-shattering paradigm shift with a very specific, detailed, and undeniable mathematical example. Let us look at the diverging lives of two different men, Michael and Alexander. Michael is deeply, hopelessly trapped in the consumer matrix. He desperately wants to look wealthy and successful, to impress his co-workers, his neighbors, and strangers on social media. So, Michael proudly walks into a luxury car dealership and takes out a massive $60,000 auto loan at an 8% interest rate to buy a shiny brand new sports car. Michael now has $60,000 of toxic bad debt attached directly to his social security number. Every single month, he has to wake up early, sit in miserable traffic, and work exhausting, soul-crushing hours at his corporate job just to generate the post-tax cash to pay the bank $900 a month. Meanwhile, the exact literal second Michael drives that beautiful sports car off the dealership lot and the tires touch the public street, the vehicle instantly loses 20% of its market value. Over the next 5 years, Michael pays for expensive premium gas, incredibly high sports car insurance, and massive maintenance bills. After 5 agonizing years of making painful, stressful monthly payments with his hard-earned salary, Michael finally, proudly pays off the bank loan. But the absolute mathematical tragedy is that the car is now heavily scratched, the engine is worn out, the technology is outdated, and the vehicle is only worth a pathetic $20,000. Michael completely, mathematically destroyed his own wealth. He traded 5 years of his precious, non-renewable human time and his physical labor to enrich the banking institution, while he was left holding a rapidly rusting, heavily depreciating piece of metal. Michael is the perfect, obedient consumer. Now let us look at the other side of the matrix. Let us look at Alexander. Alexander completely understands the hidden rules of the elite matrix. He does not care about looking rich on the internet. He only cares about building invisible, impenetrable, permanent wealth. Alexander drives an ugly 10-year-old used car that he bought with $5,000 in cash. But Alexander also takes out a massive loan. He walks into a commercial real estate lending office and confidently borrows $500,000 at a fixed 6% interest rate. Alexander takes this massive pile of other people's money and uses it to purchase a highly profitable, cash-flowing multifamily duplex in a rapidly growing working-class neighborhood. Alexander now has $500,000 of debt attached to his name. To the financially uneducated middle class, to his parents, and to Michael, Alexander looks like he is in massive, terrifying financial danger. But Alexander is playing an entirely different, infinitely smarter game. Alexander rents out both units of the duplex to hardworking, reliable tenants. Every single month, those tenants wake up, go to their stressful corporate jobs, earn their salaries, and pay $2,000 each in rent directly to Alexander. Alexander collects $4,000 a month in total revenue. He takes that money, hands $3,000 of it to the bank to completely cover the monthly mortgage payment, the interest, the property taxes, and the insurance. Then Alexander puts the remaining $1,000 of positive passive cash flow directly into his own pocket as pure, unadulterated profit. I want you to pause the video and really deeply think about the absolute mind-blowing brilliance of this strategy. Alexander is not using a single solitary penny of his own physical labor or his own W-2 salary to pay off the massive $500,000 debt. His tenants are physically going to work every single day, trading their life force to pay off his debt for him. Alexander bought a massive asset, completely entirely funded by the bank, and paid for entirely by the tenants. But the mathematical miracle of good debt does not stop there. It gets exponentially more powerful. As the years go by, the silent, invisible, and highly destructive force of economic inflation actively works in Alexander's favor. You see, inflation is a hidden tax that completely destroys the purchasing power of people who save cash in a bank account. But inflation is the absolute best friend of the leveraged real estate investor. Because Alexander locked in a fixed-rate mortgage, his monthly payment to the bank remains completely frozen in time at $3,000 for the next 30 years. But as inflation causes the cost of living to rise, Alexander steadily raises the rent on his tenants. 5 years later, his tenants are paying him $5,000 a month, but his payment to the bank is still only $3,000. His passive cash flow magically doubles, entirely driven by inflation. And then comes the ultimate, highly guarded elite strategy, the cash-out refinance. 10 years later, because of market appreciation and inflation, that duplex that Alexander bought for $500,000 is now worth $800,000 on the open market. The hardworking tenants have completely paid down the original bank loan balance from $500,000 to $400,000. Alexander has mathematically created $400,000 in pure, untouchable equity. If Alexander were a normal person, he might sell the building and pay massive capital gains taxes. But Alexander uses the elite playbook. Alexander goes back to the bank and asks for a brand new loan based on the new $800,000 value of the property. The bank agrees and gives him a new loan for $600,000. Alexander uses $400,000 to pay off the old mortgage, and he puts the remaining $200,000 of pure cash directly into his checking account. Because that $200,000 is technically categorized as borrowed debt and not income, the government legally cannot tax a single penny of it. It is entirely, 100% tax-free cash. Alexander then takes that massive pile of tax-free bank money and uses it as a down payment to buy a completely new, massive apartment complex, repeating the exact same cycle on a much larger scale. He gets all the cash, all the passive income, and absolutely 0% of the taxes. This is exactly how massive real estate empires are built from nothing. This is exactly why the top 1% aggressively seek out good debt. It is a massive, glowing financial multiplier. If you rely solely on the weak, heavily taxed money you can physically save from your own corporate salary, your wealth-building potential is strictly, brutally limited by the hours in the day and the brutal reality of the tax code. You can only save a few $100s a month. But when you learn how to confidently access, underwrite, and deploy other people's money, your wealth building potential becomes absolutely infinite. You are effectively printing your own money by acquiring cash flowing assets that mathematically outpace the cost of the borrowed capital. If you are listening to this exact sentence right now, and you feel a massive, heavy iron door suddenly unlocking in your mind, realizing that the global banking system is not just a predatory trap for the uneducated poor, but actually a massive, glowing vault of infinite leverage for the financially educated elite, you are officially waking up from the matrix. But I must issue a very serious, terrifying, and necessary warning. The reason good debt is often called a double-edged sword is because it requires absolute, unrelenting financial discipline, emotional control, and incredibly deep financial education. If you attempt to use massive leverage without thoroughly understanding cash flow analysis, market dynamics, tenant laws, and risk management, the sword will aggressively swing back and completely, violently cut your financial head off. Leverage mathematically amplifies your gains to massive, incredible heights, but it will also mathematically amplify your ignorant mistakes into absolute, unrecoverable bankruptcies. So grab a pen and a blank piece of paper right now. Eliminate absolutely all distractions around you, turn off your phone notifications, because here is your actionable, step-by-step escape plan to permanently transition from a bleeding victim of predatory consumer credit into a highly educated, untouchable master of financial leverage. Rule number 1. You must declare an absolute ruthless, scorched earth war on every single penny of bad debt currently attached to your name and your social security number. You absolutely cannot build a massive, towering skyscraper of wealth on a fragile foundation of financial quicksand. If you currently have high-interest credit card debt, personal loans for consumer garbage, or a massive suffocating auto loan on a vehicle you cannot truly afford to buy in cash twice, you must enter a state of severe financial emergency today. You must aggressively cut your lifestyle, sell the depreciating liabilities, swallow your pride, and use every single spare dollar to violently destroy the bad debt. The massive corporate collections machine is mathematically designed to keep you trapped in a cycle of minimum payments until the day you die. You must cut the heavy chains and permanently starve the machine of your hard-earned interest payments. Rule number 2. You must radically and completely change your psychological relationship with your personal credit score. The consumer matrix wants you to obsess over having a perfect 800 credit score just so you can borrow more money to buy more useless, depreciating consumer items at a slightly lower interest rate. You must completely flip the script. You must start viewing your credit score exactly the way a billionaire views a massive, glowing corporate asset. You are meticulously building a pristine financial profile not to buy a shiny new television, but to present yourself to commercial lenders and private banks as a highly sophisticated zero-risk operator. Your credit profile is your golden ticket to accessing massive amounts of cheap capital. Protect it fiercely, keep your credit card utilization extremely low, and never ever miss a payment. You are silently building the strong concrete foundation required to safely hold massive financial leverage. Rule number 3. You must dedicate thousands of hours to intense, uncompromising financial education before you dare to borrow a single penny for an investment. You must learn the exact, unforgiving mathematics of underwriting a real estate deal or valuing a private business acquisition. You must deeply understand how to calculate a capitalization rate, how to accurately measure cash-on-cash return, and how to brutally stress test your investments against a massive, worst-case economic recession. When you eventually walk into a bank, look the commercial lender in the eye, and ask for $1 million of other people's money, you must know significantly more about the specific asset you are buying than the banker sitting across the desk from you. Good debt is only good when the physical asset produces guaranteed, predictable cash flow from day one. If you borrow money to speculate on risky assets, hoping and praying the price magically goes up, you are not an investor. You are simply a desperate gambler playing Russian roulette with a loaded gun pointed directly at your own financial head. Let us summarize this brutal, completely mind-bending reality before you go out and take massive, life-changing action today. The concept of debt is entirely neutral. It is not inherently good or evil. It is simply a massive, glowing tool of mathematical leverage. The corporate financial matrix aggressively pushes you to use this powerful tool to buy rapidly depreciating liabilities, turning you into a permanent, highly profitable debt slave whose psychological profile is actively traded among ruthless collections agencies. The exact same global financial system actively rewards the ultra-wealthy elite who use this exact same tool to buy massive, cash-flowing assets that appreciate in value and completely erase their tax burden. The only possible way to win this rigged game is to completely refuse to finance your consumer lifestyle and obsessively learn how to safely use the bank's own massive reserves of money to buy your ultimate freedom. If this terrifying, reality-shattering information finally opened your eyes, if you feel like I just violently unplugged you from the psychological matrix of consumer credit and handed you the ultimate weapon of the elite class, then I need you to absolutely destroy that like button and subscribe to the channel right now. You absolutely cannot afford to miss the extremely high-level wealth-building strategies we have coming up next on this massive channel. And speaking of massive financial traps that keep you completely chained to a desk and dependent on a boss, if you want to deeply understand the absolute biggest lie ever told by the traditional corporate world, and exactly how the concept of trading your physical time for a fixed, heavily taxed salary mathematically guarantees you will never be truly wealthy, you have to watch this video right here on the screen. In it, I break down the ultimate salary trap and show you exactly why the top 1% focus entirely on building leverage and equity while the middle class begs for a tiny 3% raise. Click that video right now. Your future self will eternally thank you. I will see you over there on the other side.